So
I should let you know? Oh, you're going to... Okay, turn your mic up. Barely.
We all have things over our ears, dearest son. So Sale was here, I see, huh? When was that?
Thursday.
Thursday? How was
Yeah.
the show?
Show went well. Sal's show went without a hitch. No technical problems at all.
That's good. Okay.
All right, so switch is on. Light is on. Ready to start, Paula?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Paula. This is the Common Book Show. And I'm here today with a skeleton crew. We've got Richard, we've got Tony, and my son Tom on drums. So and of course Brian. I almost forgot about you, Brian. Not that you're forgettable. You're not forgettable. But
skeleton just got some flesh.
But we are, we're here today. And I spent the day, I have nothing, Richard. Today I have nothing except the fact I did want to mention that crew team that they have 8 crew members over the age of 80 that are participating or competing in that crew competition in Boston. I thought that was really great, and they're all fit and happy, and they've all been doing it for many years, decades, and they love it. And it sounded like a really life-affirming activity. So I like that. And I did listen to something that Brianna, or whatever her name is, but she's Brene, something. I can't remember her name. She talks a lot about intimacy, and I was going to send it to everybody to listen to, and I just ran out of time. Maybe I'll do that for next week's show. We've got it was kind of corny in some ways, but she made a lot of good points about creativity and about letting go of the, how we build up this level of protection around ourselves, and how as we get into midlife, it no longer serves us. Like when we're younger and we're worried about what everybody's thinking about us, and we need that protective shell, but that she made this really nice point about how we can't go forward unless we're willing to let some of that armor down and let people in and be vulnerable. And I know we've talked about vulnerability on the show before, but for me, the only woman on the show, to discuss vulnerability with men who are less likely or less willing sometimes to be vulnerable.
No, hey, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, I dropped those guards, recently. I quit hanging out in polite society. I never felt better in my life.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that, Tony. But so I will send everyone. I happened to by accident run into Brian at Ricky Zuckerman's poetry reading this past week. I think it was Thursday night, and I talked to him about it a little bit, and then I never sent it. But I am in a headspace right now that is totally vacant. There's been I haven't been writing in my journal. I haven't been doing any deep thinking about anything. I am just void. I've got a big void between my ears right now. So Richard, I will defer to you. I know you have a list.
Well, I just got a text message from Mystery Guest, who is chaperoning the high school dance tonight.
Oh, wow. That must be something.
You lose a bet?
I don't know. But it started out by me saying, I just filled out my ballot.
Oh, okay.
Would you like me to share it with you, and then it can help you as you're figuring out how to fill out your ballot.
Yeah.
And he wrote back something, and I have to especially find out what Brian thinks about this.
Okay.
He wrote back that when he was growing up, he always felt alienated from the people at school that were interested in sports and who played sports because it's like they didn't want him part of the group.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So from afar, he would look at them and he would look at people in the stands and he would look at their enthusiasm, rooting for the high school team and the players' enthusiasm for playing on the team. And he felt estranged from all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Not only did he feel estranged, he turned the tables and said, I don't want to be a part of all that.
Any world that I'm welcome to is better than the one I come from.
So he didn't
Steely
want,
Dan lyric.
which I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, in this regard.
Okay, yeah.
'Cause he doesn't want to join that world.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, when I mentioned this thing to him about politics, and I did that on purpose because at his bonfire he said, I am so disgusted with politics that I'm thinking on not voting anymore. And he's adapted this view of what affects the world mostly is what you do in your personal life.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going up against that with him. And now he brought up this thing about high school sports. And I said, and so he explained that to me. And then he explained when he was looking at the ballot how he doesn't mind voting, but he hates the idea of identifying with a group that cheers on a candidate. See, cheers on?
Yeah.
High school, cheers
Yeah.
on this thing. And I said, you know, I never thought of that before, but in a way, there's a connection between being interested in sports and participate in something that you're a very small part of, just one tiny little person in a stadium cheering for something.
Yeah.
In the same way with politics, you're one little vote that's cheering on this movement that you hope will make a difference in the world.
Right.
And I said to him, maybe I've learned something about you, that your whole reason that you don't want to have anything to do with politics is the reminiscence of high school sports. And you don't want to be one of those people cheering.
Mm.
You know, you've distanced yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, are you familiar with the Groucho Marx joke? I would never want to be part of a group that would have someone like me as a member. And he wrote back, that's funny, but Groucho is referring to the fact that he is insane, and people don't want insane people in groups. And I thought, what an interpretation of that joke.
That is so
That is something.
off.
I think it's about self-deprecation.
It is. It's definitely about it. No, yes, it is. But so right, and it's funny. It's a joke, you know, but it's certainly not about being insane. But the reference I made to the Steely Dan lyric is what causes subcultures and mostly people to group together in the non-culture. Here's the culture.
Yeah.
And we have a subculture. So you don't fit in with this normal thing that happens.
Yeah.
So any world that I'm welcome to, which is the subculture, is better than the one I come from.
I see.
Because I'm not wanted there. But with Sanford now, this whole idea, now, first of all, we all know, now I have to say, I was apolitical for many, many years because the country was being run by adults and I didn't have to worry about it. It was just running itself, I thought, until Donald Trump. So I have to say, the beginning of my political interest, although I've been interested in certain candidates here and there, But the beginning of my serious interest in politics happened with Donald Trump when I thought that this could all fall apart, and it is in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So every vote counts. New York State is, we're a blue state, but we've got a lot of red, in the rural areas and in the suburbs. We all need to vote. We all need to vote to make a statement that this is not what we want. And if you don't vote, like there's a quote. It's something like your choice not to vote means that you are willing to accept anything for leadership. And I mean, I'm scared. I'm really. I mean, I don't know when it will happen, but if we collapse as a country, everything's going to change. Everything. We can't do this.
Definitely. I guess I'm like my mother, who's always been politically engaged, and voting's always been a big deal. Not that I have every single election, but yeah, it's. My mom gets furious at people that complain about the state of things, but they never vote. She gets crazy. She challenges people when they talk about that.
Yeah, and it's something that he really needs to think about. If he doesn't want to live in a country that is a fascist state, he has to at least let his will be known through his vote. I mean, that's how I see it. And I'm surprised because he's a really intelligent man, and it makes me feel guilty now that I took it for granted for so long. I just let it go because it was Republicans, Democrats, everybody's running the country, everybody's got their own ideas. I can't be bothered with that because I've got other things to do.
I had never considered the fact that there are people who don't want to see themselves as a tiny piece of a bigger movement.
Well, people don't want to think of themselves as followers, but the thing is, we're all followers in some things because you can't be, I mean, all right, if you try to be different than everybody, what are you going to do? Are you going to be a person that eats rocks and lives underwater?
Oh, everything you do will be in.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you are, if he's eating healthfully and he's exercising, he's part of that group that eats healthy and exercises.
Begging your pardon, but I didn't get these biting the tires off passing trucks. But those rocks do have a good flavor to them. Yeah,
they're delicious. So the thing is, you can't be completely individual because you're going to belong. We belong to the human race. We belong to the people that live in Buffalo. We belong to, partially to our families, partially to our friends. We belong. Belonging is part of being human. I mean, we've talked about this. Society and interaction and communication is as important as anything else we need that's physical.
Now, Brian, have you ever thought that our love of sports has helped our participation in the political process?
That's something I've never thought about. That's a pretty interesting idea. For instance, baseball, which Greg is really interested in the playoffs right now, and I never watch Major League Baseball till the playoffs come, but I haven't even watched them this year. But football and baseball are so huge, and there's so many millions of fans, and the sports teams don't seem to talk about politics at all much because they don't want to alienate any potential.
Right, except when they do, and they end up getting thrown off the team because they take a knee,
Like the Buffalo Bills, for instance, this year, the players have made spots online encouraging people to vote. They don't say who they want you to vote for. They just say vote. please vote. It's important,
They're
which
also
I thought was cool.
aren't they also wearing something on their helmet? Isn't there like something that they've put on their helmet that has to do with it's a
Choose love.
choose? I don't know. There's something on their helmets. I don't remember what it is, but
Our quarterback Josh Allen has stopped hating the helmet, and he and a lot of the players went down to the May site of the shooting at Tops, and that's where they.
oh, that's right. That's what it's about. Yeah.
The Bills started the Choose Love campaign after that, and all the proceeds go to Buffalo community sources, like on the east side.
Yeah.
Now, here's another thing in the news related to what you were saying about voting.
Yeah.
In 2018, Florida overwhelmingly voted in favor of a ballot measure allowing formerly incarcerated people who had
yeah.
felony convictions to cast ballots so they could vote. But
Yep.
the Republicans managed to get some fine print in the law that excludes you if you were convicted of certain kinds of felonies.
Murder and child molestation. Child molestation, I guess.
And
Sex crimes. Sex
And
crimes.
you owed any money at all on your fines that were associated with your
No,
conviction.
you had to pay the fines in order, but they got that
Right.
they got that backed up.
Okay.
So the Republicans in the legislature had their staff research the 2020 voting records, looking for people who violated the fine print in the law. And this week, police were instructed to go to 19 different homes and arrest people for voting.
Wow.
I saw that.
I saw that on the news. It was awful.
The police who made the arrests, they complained.
Yeah.
We don't want to go arrest people for voting. And so DeSantis formed a special voting police.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it either.
So what's that say about contemporary life in America, where there's a state in the union that has voting police?
Double plus good.
The
So
whole voting fraud thing is a farce, because if you look at the last 50 years of voting records, there's like 0.0006% of all multi-million votes cast that were fraudulent. It's almost so minuscule, it's not even worth talking about. And the Republicans, who don't want to lose elections, have created all these scare ideas that there's all these
they have to, yeah,
bust vote. and
they have
all
to
this-
try to make themselves look not crazy. I
You
mean,
know.
that's what they're doing. They're trying to make themselves look not crazy, but they're crazy. So,
Right.
but the thing is, some of those voters, Richard, are
Yeah.
suing Florida or whoever they have to sue because they got voter registration cards, and they were all honest about what crimes they had committed to get themselves incarcerated. They all put it on the form because you had to fill it in. And now they're pressing charges for being falsely arrested or whatever. So they're fighting back.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I thought so too. So I saw a woman being arrested, and it was pitiful. It was really sad to see her. She didn't know what the heck was going on. And you see with these people, first of all, they live in these concrete boxes, basically. They're not even, they don't even have proper housing, and they're going to their house and they're arresting them for voting. That sounds like a police state to me. It sounds like Nazi Germany to me.
Hence my
Exactly.
reference to 1984.
Yeah.
Richard, wouldn't you consider it? I look at it as a form of violence. They're going after innocent people, maybe hurting their life by making them criminals, and who knows how that will affect them just because they tried to vote. There's just there's a lot of violence and hate being generated in our culture.
Well, Brian, what they're saying, or at least on the news places I'm listening to, they're saying that this is a tactic to keep the people who have felonies, who have done time from voting.
Oh, sure.
So they're
because
gonna say I'm not gonna vote because they're gonna come to my house and arrest me.
Yeah, you're not going to risk it. There
Right.
might be something in the fine print that affects me.
Right.
Well, in the 2000 election, Paula, the 2016 election between Trump and Clinton, the Republican secessionists wiped out not just felons, but like 40, 50, 60,000 other people or more off the voting rolls for these little ridiculous.
Yeah, because their signatures didn't match. You know what? I'll tell you something. Greg's signature doesn't look like the same signature that he had 5 years
Right.
ago because his right side is impacted by his condition. His signature
the-
looks way different.
But the reason the Republicans did that is because the voting is always so close in Florida. If you go back to the 2000 election between Bush and Gore,
Yeah.
which later it was proven that Gore won.
Yeah.
If they had stopped the count, if Catherine Harris, the Secretary of State of Florida, under Jeb Bush, George Bush's brother, hadn't stopped the vote count in Florida, they know now through investigations that Gore actually won the presidency.
Well, I didn't know that, but it doesn't. It makes sense that I mean, he just did the right thing, and he
Right.
just did the
Unlike
right thing, right?
president who refused to go along. I mean, and that's why in the last election, Biden was ready for all those. It went to the Supreme Court. Biden, a year before the election, already had the best election lawyers in the United States lined up to fight the Republicans and not get steamrolled in Supreme Court like Bush's lawyers did to Gore. That's what happened.
Yeah, I just the peaceful transfer of power is one of the most, and I hate to use the word sacred because it's of the other connotations, but it's a sacred thing that happens in democracy. We hand over power. That's the way it works, and that's how we we keep from becoming an autocracy or
Dystopia.
yeah, well, it's gotten to dystopia.
Yeah,
I'm that's why I'm frightened of anyone who says now that they will not vote. I don't. I mean, I feel for these felons that all of a sudden. I mean, it's great. They did their time. They paid their debt to society, and now they're full citizens again, and they can vote. And that's a great thing. That's what they should have. But
Yeah.
now they are afraid to use it because of these fuckers.
And I won't kid you. I mean, this whole scheme sounds exactly like something that Trump and his fucking Gestapo would come up with.
Yeah.
I can easily. I mean, come on. They were talking about a total shitheel who conspired and initiated the whole attack on his own capital. Actually admitted that he would have killed his own VP. I mean, this is a guy who I could easily see creating a Gestapo police like this to go after anybody he didn't, I mean, it's crazy, This makes PMRC look like kindergartners playing with toy blocks.
I don't know what
PMRC?
Yeah, what is that?
Parental Music Resource Center. They were a big deal back in the 80s when they were going after punk bands like the Dead Kennedys, trying to go after bands saying they were, putting lyrics backwards and trying to make, convince kids to kill, all that shit. Tipper Gore and them schmucks.
Yeah, so we're in bad shape. We're in bad shape. I just feel like we need.
Yeah, if Democrats lose the midterms, we're in deep, deep, deep trouble.
I can't even. You know what though?
Very deep.
How much conjecture can any person stomach? I mean, sometimes I'll turn on CNN or MSNBC, and I'll, when I'm eating my breakfast or whatever, and I'll sit there, and it's all they talk about are what the possibilities are of who's going to get elected and why this one's going to win over this one. I'm sick of it. I'm sick to death because Clinton was a shoo-in. She was going to win. According to the statistics, we have our first woman president. What do we get?
Yep.
We got a toilet brush.
What we got was a foreign country that manipulated the internet.
Well, he is a shithead.
that they had all these crazy things to believe in, and that Hillary Clinton was literally the devil incarnate.
Oh God.
They did. They
I'll take one pizza with chopped babies to go, please.
drinking the baby's blood. And God
Yeah,
knows.
it's.
Oh God, man! You know what? My old landlady over in Depew, where I used to rent in the week.
Yeah.
She was saying something just like that last time I went by. She was so full of these freaky ass conspiracy theories. I'm like, oh my God! I mean, I expected, like, you know, bars to sprout over the doors and trap me in there. And yeah, she is a repub.
Yeah.
Too bad, you know. I mean, some of these people could be the nicest in the world, but they're sick.
Well, it's not. It's they're misled. They're misled. Why is that not a crime to mislead people? I mean, I know free speech. Yes, we can say whatever we want, but there's got to be. We can say whatever we want, but if we're lying, there has to be some kind of retribution. You know, you can't just lie to the public and get these people who are simple-minded people
Yeah.
to believe your bullshit and then not be held responsible. You can't. There's something wrong if that's what free speech covers. There's got to be another level, or there's got to be something else in there that says you can't willfully deceive
Right.
all these people to do your will. That's
Paula,
that's a cult.
Paula, you heard about the $1 billion lawsuit from Dominion Voting Systems, which most of our machines are,
Right.
on Fox News. And Fox News has chilled out and backed off a little bit because they're in the middle of that $1 billion lawsuit.
know.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, they're
They spread lies. They spread, like you said, outright lies. None of it had any factual basis.
and
They're rabid.
the other thing is it's not news anymore, it's commentary, and it's all commentary that people
Yeah.
think is true. And
Yeah.
they've got to find a way. First of all, we don't need 24-hour-a-day news. It's
No.
not good for us. It's
No.
not good for anybody. It's and it makes news a commodity, and then news becomes, you know, you're trying to make money off of this information, and so everything becomes breaking news. We can't have that. Something's got to change there. That's ridiculous. We don't need. How many do you have cable?
There's like
Do you-
10 new.
well, there's so many stations in this just in this area here that there's some stations, Richard, that just play this sitcom called Mom 24 hours a day.
One sitcom on an entire station.
What?
Yeah. I mean, it's not on the network. It's not on the cable system. It's on, you know, when you get these television, like YouTube TV or whatever, they have like Mr. Ed. That's all it is the Mr. Ed channel. And we don't need that. We don't need all that crap.
wackadoo.
It's ridiculous. There's a glut of information, and most of it is poisonous. It's killing us. It's not healthy. Half an hour of Mr. Ed didn't kill us. 24 hours. I think anybody who sat in front of the TV 24 hours and watched Mr. Ed would come away from that psychotic.
So would you say that in the same way you can have junk food for your body, you can have junk food for your mind?
Absolutely. If all you feed your brain is junk food, that's all you can produce. And that's been my theory all along. When I first discovered books, I said, I'm never going to read anything that's trashy because I just want good information up there. I'm behind. I'm way behind. I've got a lot of catching up to do. And I think as Brian, as a writer, you know yourself, you know, the garbage in, garbage out. If you're ingesting good
yeah.
information, you know, that's the only thing that you can put out because it's the only thing that's in there. So
Yeah.
that's my theory, and I stick by it.
Paula, stop rubbing your eyes.
I can't. My eyes
Can't bite
itch.
nerves in your eyes and get sick.
I wish I could, but my eyes itch, Brian. I'm not going to stop. You can't make me.
I know. Everything does.
You can't-
We're only human, Doctor.
Yeah, I have. I've had a long day. Is what's
That's
happening now.
One of
So-
my friends used to call me doctor, the doctor, because they're like, you know so many different subjects. I
Well,
studied-
Speaking of subjects, let's see. How are you enjoying your book that you got, the Butthole Surfers book?
Actually, I have taken a break from it. I'm over halfway through, but reading extensively about these guys' exploits is exhausting. So I picked up a fictitious murder story called The Fiddlers.
Mm-hmm.
That one, it is interesting. Like, basically, you get like 5 or 6 people just randomly being killed, by silenced pistol all over New York City, and man, woman, all mostly older, but otherwise no apparent, connection, except that the Glock is the same one being used, and apparently the killer all says the same thing, basically. Hey, don't you remember me? It's Charlie, or it's Chuck, or Carly,
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that basically what you had here was your perpetrator had found himself diagnosed with and quickly dying of pancreatic cancer.
Oh.
He had about 2 months potentially to kick around the planet Earth, and decided to do 2 things simultaneously: live the high life that he never would have gotten to live otherwise, and basically take out a personal score on people who he quote said fiddled with his life or fucked with him.
Oh, so it's not random. It's
Turns out these people were connected. He had he killed his mother because she basically just up and abandoned him, his brother, and his father when he was 8 years old with no explanation. He killed a priest that molested him at 10. He shot a girl who refused to dance with him at a homecoming dance. Told him to get lost, faggot. Sorry about that, but I'm just quoting the book.
Yeah.
He killed his old sergeant in Vietnam. After that guy set him up. Basically had him kill a POW and then blew the horn.
Well,
on,
it's an interesting psychological study. It sounds like.
It was really interesting. I mean, and of course, the guy wasn't ever going to get convicted because by the
he's
time
gonna die.
by the
Right.
time they
It's-
interviewed him, he had about a week left. He was going to be going.
What a concept. Hey, Brian, I saw you posted that book online that you got from the synagogue. Have you started reading that?
Just the very beginning, but it's interesting. I have it here, and I set aside a really interesting quote by the Israeli commando that's widely considered one of the biggest heroes ever. He fought in the 2 major wars in 1967, and he also was in the raid on Entebbe where they rescued. He was the leader for the raid that rescued all the people from the airport in Africa, the Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as he's a warrior, he says, he talks about peace and how even though he was a warrior his whole life, he said, if we did not try to make peace, how could we look in the eyes of the next generation when they ask what they are fighting for? And if the peace process does not work, he's a big proponent of the peace process back in the 60s, 70s.
Right.
And if the peace process doesn't work, then at least we can look into our own hearts and know that we tried. It's important for the next generation to know that all along we fought for peace. My friends say that I have no choice but to tell my story so that the next generation knows what I know and what of all my comrades in the Israeli army knew, that when we fought for peace.
Yeah, that's such a conundrum, isn't that? Fighting for peace.
Yeah, but they were fighting to survive for one thing, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
But yeah, but he was his family was very connected with. He talked about in the introduction about Itzhak Rabin, the prime minister that was assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew him personally. He knew his whole family really well. Both of their families were close, and he really mourned his passing because he said Itzhak Rabin really, who was a warrior. He was a general.
Yeah.
He was really instrumental in trying to. He met with Arafat and tried to get the peace deal when Jimmy Carter was president,
Mm-hmm.
and they killed him for it. But he was a top general in the war in 1967.
I didn't know that you had an interest in war history and military history. Yeah.
Well, it started at about 10 years old when I read everything I could find, not everything, but a lot about World War II.
Yeah.
As a 10-year-old boy, I was interested in all the weapons and planes and tanks and how the battles
Yeah.
were. But then, because my uncle was in the Vietnam, all my uncles, 5 uncles served in the war, only one in combat. I read dozens of books on the Vietnam War, mostly by guys that were there
Mm-hmm.
and fought there. And then recently, I've read probably, I don't know, 15 books on the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. I wanted
Yeah.
to know
Yeah.
all about what was going on there. And when you read a book by the men who fought there, you get a whole different picture than you get on
Yeah.
CNN.
Yeah. Oh, I know. My brother-in-law was a history teacher at high school level, and he is very interested in war history. He's interviewed a lot of World War II vets and stuff, and I mean, he finds it fascinating. I guess I am. I resented the way history was taught in high school. It was always about the wars, and so much so that even I think as a 15-year-old, I thought that everybody marched to war together, like the kids, the wives, everybody just went to war. Nothing else was happening; it was just war. And you know, I didn't find out till college that there's social history. Oh my God!
Yes.
Like, what were people eating? What were people doing for entertainment? How were they living their lives? And so military history, I think I've put in the back of my head is the evil history.
You know what I think they should have included in history?
What's that?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. I really didn't mean to interrupt you.
We glorify war in a sense, and I was absolutely sick and nauseous in 2003 when we were going to invade Iraq because I knew it was wrong.
Yeah.
I knew it was wrong. Afghanistan was different. And I was absolutely nauseous watching on TV when they were all the hubbub and the glorification.
Yeah,
And
I was too.
Yeah.
I was like, no. And when you like Mookie Betts or the Israeli commando that was a hero, and any other American heroes that fought in all the wars, when you talk to the guys that were true heroes, they don't glorify war. They did
Yeah.
not. They don't glorify killing people. They found what it really means to kill people.
Right.
And the cost on civilians is worse than on the soldiers even. And
Yeah, I just think that we should have evolved to a place where we can use words.
Yeah.
Oh, that will happen, but I don't see it happening yet.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why Europe and NATO and the U.S. and all these countries have ended against what's going on in Ukraine because it's
Oh,
the
right.
first
Right now it's escalated. They're
That-
taking out all the power sources.
waltzed into another country and tried to take over another large country just because they wanted to.
Yeah, it's atrocious. I don't even know what to think about it. But
It's sick.
did you have something to add to the other part of the conversation?
Well, as far as teaching history, I was going to say one thing I think that they should include in history. Well, I think it should be mandatory reading to read Sinclair's The Jungle, and I'll tell you why. That is also a fervent part of history that has repeated itself. Okay, Sinclair, wrote in depth about the Chicago stockyards, the
Yeah.
conditions of the meat packing plants
And-
and everything. And everything, honestly, everything that was happening then is
Right.
happening now
Well,
in these places.
The thing is that was how Woodrow Wilson. Am I thinking of the right? No, not Woodrow Wilson. Who was the guy? Who was the
Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt? He read that book, and
Yeah.
that's how he got the Food and Drug Administration
Yeah.
to pass laws about the stockyards or whatever they call them.
Yeah, Chicago stockyards.
But anyway, it's an interest. Besides the fact that I think kids need to know about meat and where
Well-
it comes from, because they don't.
And consider this, okay? Sinclair said, he was quoted saying that he aimed at the public's heart and by accident hit in the stomach. In other words, they were far more concerned about their food than what was happening to the people working
Right.
in these conditions. So ultimately, time goes on, and after a couple more decades, you find the unions coming in. Now, you had what amounted to now like a 40-hour work week, and that job became one of the best paying, one of the best plant jobs you could have.
Yeah.
It was a job that, any non-college graduation guy could get and make a decent living on because of that, right? Well, then they started, new innovations with refrigeration and travel by highway and this and that. Next thing you know, they didn't need railroads anymore, so they moved these places out of the city, and they were able to move them into less union-friendly states. Then international companies started buying up these places, and now you have these huge concerns taking over little towns like, say, Lexington, Nebraska.
Yeah.
They are doing the same things to these people.
Well, look at all the people that got sick with COVID at these places because they didn't practice any safety measures or let them take off when they're sick. I
Yep.
mean, the thing is, anybody who's anti-union, I want them to understand the only reason we have a 5-day work week, the only reason we have an 8-hour work day, the only reason they get a lunch, the only reason they get a break, the only reason they have health insurance, the only reason they get anything. Rich people do not give away shit unless they have to. Labor unions are what built the middle class, and now the labor unions are well, now with Biden they're growing a little bit again, but once they're gone,
Well,
they can the business owners, the corporations, the people, they don't give a shit about. They don't care how many people die in the coal mines. They don't care how many people die in their. And they don't. They used to. People used to fall into the coke ovens and at Donahanna Coke,
yeah.
and they would die. They would die, and they wouldn't even tell the families.
It's like what would happen at the stockyards, those big cooking vats.
Yeah.
There were instances where workers would fall into these things. There was no guards, there was no nothing, and they would just maybe tell the family that the guy just took off or something.
Yeah.
But honestly, look around now. Okay, Ronald Dickhead Reagan did so much busting up of the unions that honestly, the unions anymore are very weak. And so many of the headquarters of these corporations are in anti-union states.
Yeah.
And-
Right to work states, which
and
means right to take advantage.
The
states.
40-hour work week is gone now.
Well,
Except for maybe here and there.
That's why we all need to get out and vote,
Yes,
including you, mystery guest.
Mr. Guest, trust me, I know how you feel. The day I moved to Lancaster, I was up against those same kids. I always said, I'll never fit in here, I'll never want to. But you know what? Don't ever conjunct that and like say sports games and that with politics. I know what you mean, but in politics, you do have the power to make that one more move count. That's how we at least had Obama for a while. And that's how we're at least trying hard to bring Trump up against the ropes and make that fucker accountable. Dude, don't give it up. All right?
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Richard.
Tie back to your question about athletics and sports and voting. Actually, there's a kind of tribal aspect to sports teams and who people support, and our tribalism in our elections is rampant.
Yeah, that's right now it is.
Yeah.
And so, what
Okay.
else is that? Are you sure? Are you sure you're okay today? Because you seem a little sleepy. Are you sleepy?
For some reason, I am.
Yeah, you say I saw your one eye was actually closing there for a while, and I'm like, whoa, that's not like Richard. He's usually so alert.
I am sleepy.
What else is on your list?
I thought this was good writing.
Okay.
When my oldest son was 4 years old, he asked me one night whether God was real. And I said, well, what do you think? And he said, I think that for real, God is pretend. And that for pretend, God is real. And I responded, what do you mean? And he said, God isn't real except when we pretend God is real.
Wow.
I'm Jewish. I don't go to synagogue except for Yom Kippur and Passover. And I've always wondered, if I don't think of myself as a religious believer, why do I have my attachment and go to these rituals? My son helped me understand it. I'm starting to think of it as kind of a pretend play going to these rituals that makes me feel good, in the same way that children's pretend play makes them feel good.
Yeah, and the point being that this whole idea of rituals, that's what we're lacking. We lack that in our society. We lack ritual. There's something really important, like in the old days, in other cultures, they would have a ceremony when you became, even in the Jewish culture, you have your bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. It's a ceremony, and it helps a passage in your life. We don't have any of that anymore. We've lost it, and I think people crave it to some degree. I mean, I think it's important to create your own rituals. Like maybe you might consider your bonfires a ritual, like a gathering together of people, like sitting around a bonfire when people lived in caves, to tell stories and to communicate. And that's a little ritual. So I think that we need those kinds of things in our lives. And by a lot of people giving up on religion, just casting it aside, they're susceptible to things like QAnon. And I mean, they've got they're trying to grasp onto something that seems like it's going to give meaning. And it's, I don't know, it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous for us to be without ritual.
Suppose this, okay? Unfortunately, at some point in just about everyone's life, innocence has a very short shelf life and a quick demise. Innocence is your comfort, your warmth, your insulation, protection from the hostility of a cold world. I really believe that it could even be an instinctual thing with people, that people individually and as a whole need something desperately, something as warm, as comforting, as protecting to replace a lost innocence with.
And
You
that's
dig?
that's one of the things that this I'm going to send it to everybody for next week. They talked a little bit about that and how trying to recapture not so much innocence but trust, and so as you get older, just getting that trust back so you can connect with people. And yeah, there's something to be said about innocence. I mean, nobody can keep innocence. Just means you don't know the facts of life. Basically, you don't know how the world works, and you have to find out how the world works at some point, because if you don't, it's like in The Idiot, the Dostoevsky book. He is an innocent. He's an innocent and he's so special and so sweet throughout his entire life, and he is untouched by worldliness, and it's such a great. That's why the character is so seductive, because he is just innocent.
I chill with that dude every day.
Have you read that book?
No, but I tell you,
I'm gonna bring it next. I'm gonna bring it next week.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's Russian literature, so it ain't easy, but it's.
It's ironic because he's actually in the past said that maybe maybe at one time in my life I might have been Dychevsky or something like that, But seriously, someone that beautiful and that pure, man, I'd chill with that dude every day.
I fell in love with this character. He was such a wonderful character, and I think you would love this character actually.
Probably.
And you know what? I'll tell you something. Nobody remember. This is one of the Dostoevsky books that people don't really talk about anymore. It's not like one of his big ones. It would make a great comic book.
Really?
Oh my God! It would make a great graphic novel. Just this character, this really sweet, warm, loving character, walking through the world like a Christ-like character.
Ain't nobody hurts him, do they?
Well, he forgives them.
I'm gonna be crying when I read this saying.
Well, anyway, I want to tell you one thing you have to do. Once you start reading it, you got to take notes on the names, because they have a whole list of names, these Russian characters, and I get confused. And so every time somebody says their name, I say, okay, this person is this person. Okay, he's the uncle of so and so.
Yeah.
So that when they have another name that applies to that, I fill that in. So you got to keep notes on the characters, because you'll get lost. That's the only
Okay.
thing with Russian literature.
And the Russians usually have like 3 names they use every time too.
Well, there's a patronym. There's a full like their full name. There's just their first name. There's the Bushka. It's their little pet name.
Yeah.
And you're like, who are all these people? It's one person.
Right.
But I'm going to bring you that book next week. I got to remember. I'm going to make a note in my phone.
He's just an incredible writer, though. His characters, all the stuff.
And you know what else you would like is The Red and the Black by
Yeah.
Stendhal. That's another one. I don't have a copy of that though.
Please enlighten me.
Yeah, that's another great book.
It's set in France, right? I believe.
I don't remember. I just remember it's powerful, potent stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm making a note to myself right now. So, Richard, what else is on your?
Are you familiar with with the painter James Ensor, Ensor?
I've never heard of her.
James Ensor.
James Ensor, 1860 to 1949.
No, don't know her.
So in one phase of his career, he seemed to be very aware of the public face and the private face.
Mm-hmm.
And he started changing the way people's faces appeared in his paintings.
Uh-huh.
Okay? So here is an example of a James Ensor painting. Mr. Windsor, could we have the Lenovo? You just shut off the sound, I think. Oh, no, that was Brian. Lenovo, please.
Tom?
Lenovo.
Hey, Wendy.
There we go. Look what he's
Whoa.
done. Look what he's done with people's faces.
Wow. He's really distorted them
Yeah.
like animals. Almost. They're all like, they look like animals. Like,
Oh, so you're saying he's representing what is the private face under the public face. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure if he was
Oh,
presenting
yeah.
the public face or the private face.
although, it seems to me that they have a very animalistic. I think that's the underneath.
I think that's more the societal face.
You think it's the societal face?
Yeah, I mean, well, okay. Again, let's
discuss the okay. If it's the societal face, that's the way the people want to be seen.
Consider this, okay? A little bit in the past here, our mystery guest diplomat, he said that initially he felt alienated from the crowds worshiping sports, and ultimately decided he did not want that anymore anyway. He saw something vicious, something alienating in the societal face. And I believe
so it's the perception of somebody who's actually perceiving correctly.
basically those who are accepted or believe they are accepted by the crowd as such will see the more illusory, beautiful face that, the beautiful people.
Oh, this is
as
good.
That
I
people
like
like
this.
the diplomat mystery guest and myself, we are able to see through that
So you
veneer
see
to the
with the-
societal face, which is animalistic. We see them for the brutal animals and the alienists that they truly are.
Good analogy.
Ah, I like that, Tony. I like the fact that, because so you're saying that the artist being empathic in that sense,
The humanist.
that's how he sees these people.
Right.
Awesome. That's awesome. Because I mean, it could be argued the other way too, because they may they may be covering up that animal with a facade, and as we're all animals. We just don't want to admit it, But the ruthless animals that they look like in that picture, that could be how they actually feel. And but they present a different face. But I think Tony's right though. I think that it's the person who can actually see through that's seeing what's actually there.
So this came up
Yeah.
because there's a new documentary out involving the movie The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It was directed by William Friedkin.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody thought up this idea. Let's sit down with William Friedkin and just ask him all kinds of stream of consciousness questions about the making of The Exorcist.
Yeah.
It turned out to be really fascinating.
So you watch this?
Oh, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed it because he says, when you're directing a movie, a lot of things come into your mind. For example, the theme song, which
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you know, the Tubular Bells.
Yeah, the bells.
Okay, so Warner Brothers is putting up the money,
Right.
and they say, oh, we got a whole symphony orchestra all set. We have the best director of music in Hollywood, Bernard Herrmann, and he's written a score for you. And then Friedman had to have the guts to say to Warner Brothers, I don't like it. I don't like it because when it's playing, you can't hear what's going on underneath it. I want something that's so delicate that if there's little sound effects going on, you can still pick them up even while the music is playing. And they said, well, we don't know what you want. We don't know what you want. So he sat down with the engineer of music at Warner Brothers, and he said, what do you recommend? And he said, well, people send us music all the time. He says, and I got a whole stack of records here. Let's just start playing them one after another.
Wow.
And then he heard that music from Tubular Bells. He said, let's
Wow.
contact this guy.
Boy, that guy must have been surprised, huh?
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was in his mind when he wrote it.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? He may have thought of that as a delicate love scene or something.
Exactly. Well, another thing that Friedkin said is, I would often go to the art gallery in whatever city I happen to be in. All the time throughout my life, I do this ever since I've been a director because painting inspires me. And he said, for example, look at the Ensor painting. Mr. Windsor, could we have the Lenovo? Now, you will see here, can you see how that influenced the way Linda Blair's makeup got done?
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
Might I translate exactly what I see from my own past in high school? Can I see that again, please?
Mr. Windsor, the Lenovo.
Yeah.
Okay. The gentleman in the top hat,
Yeah.
I see basically as what I saw as the high school jock, popular, musclehead type. He was the guy who actually transferred after my friend just to continue his torment. And when my friend left he continued with me.
Oh,
Oh, you got to say goodbye, Paula.
no. This was a quick show. I'd like to continue this next week.
If we could,
All right,
yeah.
thank you. This has been the Common Book Show. We're off the air.
Okay.
Brian,